Welcome to the Past Life Awakening Institute podcast. I'm Mark Beal, a past life regression therapist and trainer. Each episode shines a light on healers who practice spiritual regression therapies like hypnosis and hypnotherapy with regression to this life, past lives, between lives, and spirit releasement therapy. If you're interested in having personal sessions or certification training in any of these modalities, go to my pastlifeawakeninginstitute.com website for details. So thanks for watching and enjoy this episode. Today my guest is Benoît Penneçot. He is a past life regression therapist. He also practices between lives regression therapy and spirit releasement therapy. He's French and he lives in the Haute-Savoie region near the Alps in northern France by the Swiss border near Lake Geneva or Lake Léman. He's a graduate of the Past Life Awakening Institute in Between Lives and Spirit Releasement and a graduate of QHHT and Introspective Hypnosis. His first language is French, but he's done most of his training in English and conducts many sessions in English as well. So he practices in person and online. As a practitioner of spiritual hypnosis, he can accompany you in a luminous and transformative experience to meet your spirit guides and discover your past or future lives. His popular YouTube channel is Luminous Hypnosis Spiritual QHHT. So look for him on YouTube and go to his website, Luminous, and contact him at info@luminous.com. So Benoît, welcome to the podcast.
Bonjour, merci. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I would love to do the podcast in French, and hopefully I can spend a few months in France this year and polish up my French so it can be good enough. But until then, we'll do it in English. So thank you for coming and speaking in English, and to all your French-speaking fans. Thank you. And so actually tell us a little about luminous. I believe lumi means light and naissant is like nascent, like coming into existence and showing future potential. So what does luminescent mean?
Well, lumi, it means light, and naissant, it means the birth, being born, and luminescent, it's a play on word. Luminescent, it's something that is shining, that is really bright. And actually, the choice of this name was really interesting. It's interesting because I spent maybe a week trying to find the right name for my website, for my company. And I did lots of brainstorming, and I wrote many ideas. And in the end, I chose this one. And when I met my best friend, a few days later, and I told her, look, I've picked this name and I put it online and I registered the name and everything. She told me, but that's the name I've picked already a year ago for my company. I completely forgot about it. But she said, okay, you should have it. It fits better for you and what you're doing. So go with it. And that's how I picked Luminescent.
Okay, sounds good. And so you do a lot of things. I guess past life regression is part of a core, but then you do get into between lives and spirit releasement. So I guess we can cover a fair bit of that today. I'm interested to know about some of your case studies, but what are the main therapeutic modalities that you use?
Well, I started a few years ago with QHHT, and there's a high demand for this very specific technique. So many people call me for a QHHT session, but I've learned many different techniques, and I'm actually using my own technique today to guide clients through past lives. So usually it's past lives, and then we'll connect with guides or close relative that passed away. And there's a great healing when these meetings are happening. And talking with the higher self and trying to sort out all sorts of blockage and problems that people meet in their life.
Okay, so how did that progression happen? QHHT, for those that don't know, that's primarily a past life regression based modality.
Yes, it's a technique that has been developed by Dolores Cannon. The books from Dolores Cannon have been translated in French few years ago, and it's quite a big thing here in France. More and more people discover the book and they read it and they think, wow, it really opened them to a new perspective. To those books allow them to see things very differently, and they want to follow up with their own session to see what messages they can get from their subconscious. So this technique was developed by Dolores Cannon for over 40 years, maybe, and she practiced it and enhanced her technique for 40 years. This technique is interesting because you reach a very deep level of trance, and it's a very simple technique, a very natural way to get into the hypnotic trance. But that's a technique you cannot practice online, for instance. It's a very long session because it can last 6 hours.
From that base of QHHT, which is generally in person, you've now studied some classical past life regression, which is probably what I call what I teach. And I know QHHT and Dolores, they do get into things with entities and various beings and ETs. And that's something that I find in my classical past life regression therapy, and that comes through in between lives and in spirit releasement. We get involved in some of those things. We can practice online, which is a nice opening, I think, in this time of how the world is these days. Being able to practice online is quite helpful. But it's also, I do find a lot of people who have QHHT backgrounds and the experience that they have really benefits them when they come to study with me and go to practice online. So I think it's really helpful, that background that you've got.
Yes, one of the big limits in the QHHT method is the fact that everything is supposed to be good. The evil spirit or entity don't exist in QHHT. That's something you don't learn, and that's something that doesn't exist. So after a few sessions, maybe a dozen or 100 sessions, then you end up with something happening really weird in a session, and you don't know what to do or how to react, and it's very confusing. And that's why I start looking for other methods, other technique, other approach, and that's how I discover your courses, and that help a lot in my practice.
Okay, well that's really interesting because I call it spirit releasement therapy. So there's a kind of assumption that we're releasing, and I do speak about dark force entities and earthbound spirits that are attached, and it's not really appropriate that they are. But even though I will call them dark force entities, and they are having a negative, quite often dramatically bad effect on a client, I still don't fundamentally see them as being bad. They may be horrifically bad on the outside and the appearance, but internally, at their core, they are light. And when you deal with them, they may swear and cause all sorts of strange reactions. Ultimately, when you deal with them from that perspective of compassion, peace, understanding, and just with a general understanding that the light is the ultimate force, so then that enables you to be able to work with them. And so I think it's useful to prepare people for the fact that those dark kind of things can happen, but ultimately not to buy in too much to the darkness. So does that make sense? Or
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I discovered. Before, when you don't know about it, then of course it can be very scary, especially if this entity is shouting at you or calling you names. But once you know exactly what's happening and how you can help your client and also the spirit who's stuck here, it's not scary anymore. And it's actually can be really beautiful to help those spirits go into the light. And I've shared some sessions on my YouTube channel about that, where the spirit goes into the light, and the spirit is crying and is really grateful for the help we've brought
yeah,
to him.
exactly. And the session would have started by the spirit saying, "If you get away, she's mine. I can't stand you. I don't want to help you. Get out of here." And then eventually we sit with them and gather information, learn the story, go through a whole process. It can take a while, but eventually then we do get to that place where they're tearfully, gratefully wishing us well and going off. So yeah, that's great. And that's the kind of thing as well, which I think is useful to put out there, because, oftentimes, like if you do 1,000 past life sessions, sooner or later, you're probably going to come across something like this. And if you're not told in advance that it can happen and that there's a way of dealing with it, that's where the problems can be. But I think if you're open and say this kind of thing can happen, there are ways to deal with it. Here's how to handle it. So the first thing is not being too shocked if and when it does happen. It's also often a function of just the numbers. Like eventually you'll meet it if you do enough sessions. But there's also a karmic connection that some people have and some people just don't. So some people will do 1,000 sessions and hardly have any experience. Some people will do 20 and find that a quarter of their clients have got some sort of SRT thing. And to me, that's not an indication that, only 1% of the people have it. It's really got so much to do with the ability and karma of the person to be able to have things like that come up from their clients and to be able to deal with it. So yeah, so does that make sense to you? Do you feel that you have much connection with it, or what do you think it is about you or your sessions that have enabled you to help people with this kind of thing?
Well, just about what you said, I think it's really interesting, the way we get clients, and it's actually it feels like there's some help somewhere. And when I started to learn how to do spirit releasement therapy, then I got many clients with this kind of problem afterwards, few weeks afterwards, but I was ready to help them. Also, it seems like there's always a pattern or a theme for me every week with the clients I get. And usually I will have 2 or 3 clients following one to another, and they have the same kind of problem or the same kind of session happening. So yes, I got several releasement session, spirit releasement session that happened after I had this training done, but I was ready to help them.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. I think some people, they might even be concerned about getting into past life regression in the first place if things might get a bit funky. But the good side is that if you're really not interested in doing this or afraid of it or not connected or don't know how to do it, it probably won't even come up. But the minute that you gather the skills to do it, it's like there's a little radar gets sent out and people say, oh, this person can help, and the spirit guides or even the dark spirits in some way or any kind of spirit will gravitate you towards. And the client may not even necessarily know why they're coming, but then you find out that they were guided in order to get this releasement. And again, this idea that we're trying to make spirits release that are negative, that are clinging on. Oftentimes, those spirits themselves are part of. On one hand, the spirits connect to our clients, and we want to release them. But on the other hand, in one way or another, our clients can be clinging on to the spirits a little bit, or certainly have mixed feelings and not quite even know how to let go or release them from both sides. And us having the skills to do that, I think they recognize it at some level and are able to get the people to see us and then go through the process. So yeah, I'm kind of interested in how does that manifest, like with the presenting issues that people bring to you? Do they often know explicitly that they need spirit releasement and talk about those terms, or does it come up spontaneously, or do they not know why they're coming, but then it turns out to be that kind of thing?
Well, most of the time, I'm trying to think about all the session of spirit releasement therapy I had. Most of the time, it just happened in the session, and we're not expecting that at all, either the client or me. It's very rare when someone's coming to see me and tell me, okay, I have a spirit attached to me and I need some help. Usually, those clients have been told that they have something by someone else who can't help more than that. But yes, most of the time the spirit will appear in the session, and then okay, so let's deal with it, and let's help the spirit to go into the light.
Yeah, well, that's really nice. That's a funny thing about spirit releasement therapy is a lot of times it is spontaneous. So the client doesn't know anything about spirit releasement therapy. They don't know the difference between a dark force entity or an earthbound spirit. and they're not expecting even to deal with it. The nice thing is, like, they're not really being conditioned. They haven't read a book about it and decided they want to have that. It just comes up totally spontaneously. They wouldn't invent it. Well, how could they possibly invent it? And why would they want to in the first place anyway? But regardless, all these spontaneous cases tend to have a lot of similarities. And that was for me like very convincing at the beginning of just understanding that, why would all these random people have very similar issues that have very similar solutions, which is, just this process that we learn. And that was kind of quite incredible to me. So have you found that as well? Like a lot of different people, but a kind of a uniformity of core issue and solution?
Yes, it's I would say for all the session, it's always the same pattern, the same answers coming through every single client, even if they are from different background, different religious background or education. It's always the same answers coming through, always the same explanations or resolution, and that's for me a really good validation about what we're doing, what I'm doing.
As I was starting out, or in the early days, I would, it was mainly spontaneous, and I had some personal karma that attracted me to it as well, or and made it something that I needed to do. But overall, it's something I didn't really seek out, but it did come to me. And now that I find that, as I teach a course in it, I'm like relatively public with it on my website, I'm getting quite a lot. In fact, I've noticed a big uptick in the last 6 months of spirit releasement therapy. I think there's partly a willingness of people to get in touch about it and communicate it. And I think also just that recognition that ultimately it's a really beautiful light thing. I think in the past, all of the preconceptions of exorcism or it being crazy or being too weird, I think, or just being too dark and not wanting to deal with it or being afraid of it, I think it is really ultimately an opportunity just to understand some really core principles about lack of fear and about what reality is. And even emotionally, we want to take our clients just as therapists into the darkness of their own pain from causative experiences in the past that cause hurt or anger or betrayal or sadness. And as spiritual therapists, I think it's really helpful to be able to take people into the darkness of whatever spiritual manifestations are of that, but only so that we can shine a light on it. And sometimes the greater the darkness you go into, the greater the light that's needed and the greater the enlightening result. Even getting into a negative spirits versus positive spirits, and they're all positive. They even go beyond that, which is it's all just light, and let's go beyond dualities and not have to call them, even be too negative or positive about it, because they will change and transform during the sessions. So what do you think about it, sort of that non-dualistic approach? Do you think that's fair? Or
what I can say is I really like the way how you present this work, going into the darkness to help the client go through it and go into the light in the end, and that's exactly it. And about the spirit releasement therapy, yes, there's like a barrier or a limit or something where people don't want to go through, because the only thing we really know about that are the horror movies like The Exorcist or those kind of movies. So of course it's, even when you don't know anything about it, it's just very scary and you don't want to go there. But yes, it's going really into the dark to shed some light and to bring the clients into the light. And I really like this image.
so that's a great start on the kind of things that you do, and we'll come back to that with some really specific examples soon. But before we get into that, can we have a bit more background? So can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up, the culture in your town towards healing, and how you've gravitated towards spiritual healing over the course of your life? So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Burgundy in France, near Dijon, in a small town of 7,000 people, I believe. I have a Catholic background. I had to go to church when I was a kid. But healing and spirituality, it wasn't something in my life at this point. I had no idea what spiritual meant, or healing, or spiritual healing. Or I didn't know anything at all about all this. So I grew up, I studied biotechnology. I have a degree in biotechnology, actually. I did another school to learn graphic design. So I worked as a graphic designer. So I was someone very, with a scientific background, very in the in the logical and the visible things of life.
Okay. I find actually people with that kind of background, with a systematic, methodical approach to things, that's actually quite a helpful transferable skills for spirituality. But it does then require us at some point to make the jump into a spiritual path. So, what is it that made you make the shift?
Well, it's going to be a long story.
Okay.
So, um, something really, really strange happened to me in 2012. So before that, I grew up in France. I worked in France, different places in the south of France, in Nice. I studied in the north of France, in Nancy. So I moved into different places. But then I had this feeling that something was missing, that there was something missing in me to be really happy, to be really completely complete, and to be me. And I had to travel to find, to try to fill this void. And for me, it was to find the right place to live. I was sure that there was somewhere in the world a place where I would finally feel complete and happy. So I moved to the UK, and I lived for 5 years in Manchester, where I work as a graphic designer. And then I decided to move to Canada, and I went to Montreal. And there I started my own company after a little while, and I had my business teaching Adobe software in companies across Quebec and sometime also Ontario. I had everything to be happy, but again, there was still this emptiness in me, this little thing missing to be really happy in my life. And I didn't know what it was. I was still looking for this perfect place, this perfect environment for me to live. So I was ready to move on again, and maybe to go in BC or in Alberta, in different places in Canada. I was still searching for this place. And in 2012, I moved into a new flat, a new apartment in Montreal. And a few weeks after I moved in, I was waking up. I was waking up at night with the feeling that someone was in my flat. And at this point, there was absolutely no spirituality in my life. For me, ghost was just something in movies, to make stories in movies, and that's it. And I never really thought about it. I never really thought about life after life, or what's happening after, once we die. And so for a few days, I woke up with this feeling that there's someone in my flat. There's someone in my flat. So I really woke up and searched into the whole flat. It was a really big flat, so there was many rooms, and I opened all the cupboards and all the wardrobes and all the doors to check, because I was sure there was someone in my flat. That was such a strong feeling. But I couldn't explain it. There was no one. The doors were locked, so I went back to sleep. And after a few days, I thought, okay, there's something weird happening here. And I started doing research online, and I found out that some people were experiencing the same feeling. And the strange thing was that it was happening at the same time. It was always 3:30 in the morning. I didn't know what time it was happening for me, but then the night after, when I checked my alarm clock, when I woke up in the middle of the night, it was 3:30 or 3:31 or 3:32. And then it continued to happen for a very long time. The idea here is that, of course, with my scientific and logical background, I try to find an explanation for that. Was it an animal on the balcony? Was it an electronic device? Maybe a neighbor waking up? And all those possibilities didn't work out. And in the end, I found out that there was really a spirit of a child, 12-year-old child in my room at night. And so I had validations. There was no doubt anymore that this was really happening for me. And this put my world upside down because I wasn't ready to live something like that. And at this point, I started to get interested in spirituality, and I started. I remember the first book I read was the book from Allan Kardec about the spirits, and then I started reading a lot of books and trying to find the many information about the spirituality, about spirit, and about all this. I met with the family of these little spirits, and I told them, well, I think he wants to tell me something. I think he has a message. That's the feeling I had. And they told me, well, you should try spiritual hypnosis. I said, yeah, okay. Well, I didn't know what they were talking about, but weird thing, 2 days after that, I received an email for an invitation to go to an evening where they would explain what spiritual hypnosis was. So I thought, okay, well, I have to go. This is for me. This is a message. I have to go and see what this is all about. And after the conference, after the lecture, the person who organized it came to me and said, okay, that's something you want to ask me. And I thought, what? And so we talked a little bit, and she agreed to do a session with me to try to talk to these little spirits. So the point of this session was for me to validate what was happening, that I wasn't making things up and it was really happening. And it was also a validation for the family of the spirit that was in my house. So this first session was quite terrible, but I had two elements, and there was no doubt anymore for me. There was no doubt that there was really something that we could connect and talk to spirit. That spiritual hypnosis was, there was really something happening. And so I did other sessions for me, and I did a couple of sessions, and those sessions really helped me to open up and let the information go through, and my life started changing. It happened very gradually. Actually, I didn't even realize it was. I wasn't making any effort to change in my life. There was some little things that helped me realize that I had changed the way I was living. For instance, I was at the supermarket waiting in the line, and I was daydreaming, and all of a sudden, when the lady called me, so I turned and had a look at the grocery on the tray, and I thought, oh, that's not mine. That's not mine. Where's my stuff? It took me maybe a couple of seconds to realize that I had changed completely the way I was eating, my way of life, and I was another interesting thing was I was walking on the street, and then I saw a woman, an old lady, that just smiled at me, and I realized she did it because I was smiling. And so that was all these little things, and my friends telling me that I wasn't moody anymore, I wasn't complaining all the time anymore, and I realized I wasn't sick all the time anymore. So all these things together made me realize that really something had happened in my life, and I didn't feel this void anymore. I realized that what I was looking, searching, and I was ready to travel around the world to find this place was actually just inside me. I was looking for something outside while it was just inside me. And this changed my whole life. And at this point, I wanted to, I said, okay, I have to learn this technique. I want to be able to offer that to my friends and my family. And that's how it all started.
There's an element there, and that's what I was talking about a little bit before. Sometimes there's a karmic connection or, a reason that gets you into it. And so I actually had a partner who happened to be from Montreal. I met her in India, but in Nepal, and had experiences that were life-changing. We both had experiences that are very strange, or a scientific person might say this doesn't make any sense, or even spiritual people will be hesitant to speak about or not fully understand. But I think when we go through those experiences, in depth for years, to me, it's almost like a phoenix going through the fire, which is after those experiences, you're unable to be burned and you are able to help other people really work with them and integrate them into their life. So how long would you say it took for you to go from that point of being in your apartment and finding there's an entity there, or something's happening, to getting treatment, to integrating it, to being a healer? What was that? How, for me, it took a few years. How long did it take you?
Yes, it took a while. It took maybe 5 years for me because it took already 1 year before I could accept that there was really a spirit in my flat. So it has been a very long process because I wasn't maybe listening to all the signs and to all the messages I was sent. Or yeah, it took few years. Actually, I started my first training in hypnosis in 2015. So yeah, it took 3-4 years.
And that is one thing for people that often when they have the very first experiences, I think there'll be a lot of people watching who identify with, will say, oh, I felt there was a weird spirit energy, I don't know, in my flat last week. And so, and then they'll often contact and be, I need to get this sorted out, like I need an appointment with you tomorrow or today. It's like, guys, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so I think the solution is in the patience, a persistence, and gradually integrating it through. Now, we can when we experience it ourselves, as healers, I think there's also partly things that we need to experience, and it can take a longer time. When we work with our clients, we can definitely get through it in a much shorter time and help them integrate it so they can get back to their life. But they're also, so that's sort of clients that are watching and thinking, oh, maybe I need a session like Ben did. But then they're also going to be healers watching. And I think a lot of them will be able to relate and say, I've had some pretty funky, strange stuff happen in the last 2 or 3 years. And that's why I'm taking these courses or doing this training. So they a little bit, and they need to go into it deeper to know how it works, to integrate it into a healing practice. So it's one thing to sort of to overcome it and get on with your life. And it's another thing to change your life to go down that path. What was it for you that made you change from being like a successful business person who resolved this issue in their flat in 2012 to deciding that, I'm now really going to step on the path and commit myself full time, years later? So there's a process of awakenings and decision making. So what was it that got you just to it must have, I presume you had good experiences with people when you learned and studied, and that's sort of that last thing. You can be certified and you can practice a little bit, but then what was it that made you decide you wanted to have this as your full-time profession?
Well, it wasn't really planned, actually. I've been pushed into that way. First, for me, it was to learn how to do it and to be able to give session to my friends and family, because I knew that they wouldn't make the effort to travel maybe 100 or 200 kilometers to see someone that could do that for them. So I started like that. I had my job during the week, and during the weekend I was doing session for friends, but the friends were sending me their friends, and I was busy all the weekends in the end, and I really enjoyed it. The feedback of those people, the experience, and it was giving me a lot as well to help those people. It was nourishing me, feeding me. I don't know what I
Yeah.
should. It was really it was really I was receiving a lot back. So that's how I started, and with the time I learned more techniques. I study more hypnotherapy and past lives, and I read all the books from Dolores Cannon, Michael Newton, Brian Weiss, and many others. I knew that what I was coming to do in Canada, even if I didn't know what it was exactly, I had found it through this, thanks to the spirit. And so I had nothing else to do. There was nothing waiting for me anymore in Canada, and I could move back and be close to my family again. But it wasn't something I had planned to do in the short term. And during some holidays, I came to France, and we went on a kind of road trip with a friend, and we decided to go through Switzerland, and everything went wrong. We had planned something, but it went completely wrong, and we ended up not in Switzerland, on the other side, on of the lake in France, in Evian. And it was, I remember it was in winter. It was very cold. There was lots of fog. And when we arrived, it was maybe 9 p.m. and the city was very quiet. We couldn't see anything. But I saw those signs, and there was many signs. It was crazy, all the sign. I got like, oh, that's weird. That makes me think of home. Oh, that's like, yeah, it's home. And I had all those signs, but I didn't really pay attention. I was just surprised and thinking, oh, that's interesting. And I remember the day after, in the morning, we were having breakfast at the restaurant, and I after maybe 20 minutes, I look up and I saw a poster, and this was huge message for me, because this poster was about a shop selling bicycle in Dijon. And that's exactly what my parents did. So for me, this was too big. So I said, okay, there's something, you want to tell me something, I'm listening. And we went out, the sun was shining, I could see the lake in the background. We discovered the city we couldn't see the day before because of the fog. And instantly I had this feeling, I'm supposed to be here. I have to be here. I had this feeling I couldn't explain, that was the place where I was supposed to come. I got back home in Canada, and I was thinking about this place, this city, Evian-les-Bains, and I thought there was really something, a kind of attraction I couldn't explain. So I went for a session with a colleague with a colleague, and the answer I received from my guide was, yes, he's supposed to go there. He'll find the perfect place for him to live in a small village above the city. That's where the next part of his life is going to happen, where he has to go, next step in his life. And I thought it was completely crazy, because that's one of the most expensive places in France, probably with Paris. And I couldn't just give up my company, my work in Canada, to come here and do what? To start over again from the beginning. So I didn't know what to do, but at the same time, I could visualize this two-story flat, two-story building. I knew that I would live in this place with 2 levels, in this village above the city of Evian-les-Bains. I don't know, maybe a year or 2 years happen. Actually, 2 years happen, where I was thinking, yeah, maybe one day I'll go there. And I ended up in the hospital, in the emergency in Montreal, where I spent a couple of days in the ER, and I spent 6 days total in the hospital. And it was traumatizing for me. It was the worst 6 days of my life. And it was a real nightmare because I didn't know what was happening. I was just scared by the doctors that wanted to operate. And in the end, after 6 days, they just let me go. And they say, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. But it's been such a trauma for me, really, to experience this, to be in the unknown, and to be so scared about what could happen and the fact I could die. Or that when I get out, I thought, okay, I can't stay here. I have to be close to my family. I have to go back home. And in a couple of weeks, everything just, I could sell everything I had. I could go back home. I found someone at the last minute to pick me up at the airport in Paris and drive me at my parents. And all this just happened, like it was meant to happen. And so first thing I did when I arrived in France is, okay, so I'm supposed to be in Evian, so maybe it's time and let's go. So I booked a hotel room for a week, and I did all the different places to find a place to stay. But of course, no one wanted to rent something to me because I didn't have a job, because I didn't have any guarantees. And so after the week, I went back to my parents and I was thinking, okay, I had really big doubts about hypnosis. How could I do something if I can't believe the message I receive? And there was a crisis here. I thought, okay, should I go back to Canada? Should I go back to Montreal? Should I stay in Burgundy? I didn't know what to do anymore. And someone called me to offer me a flat. And I didn't follow up at first because I thought, no, I don't like it. But this person called me a second time 2 weeks later. I thought, well, maybe I should go and have a look. And when I arrived and I saw this flat was in a village above Evian-les-Bains. It's a 2-story flat and it's just perfect. I've got this amazing view on Geneva Lake, and that's where I came. That's why I said, okay, yeah, I'm going to stay here. But the internet connection is really bad where I live because I'm in the mountains, really far from everything. And so I thought, okay, you want me to come here, I'll do it, but I trust you. You said that's where I'm supposed to be. Okay, I trust you. So there's no internet. I have to give up my job in computer, in teaching, in all this. And so it was very drastic move for me. It changed overnight, basically. And I said, okay, well, I can't do this anymore. That's what I've done for 15 years, and I'm really good at what I'm doing. And I have many clients asking for me. So I had a lot of work, and I wasn't worried about that. But overnight, I decided, okay, so let's leave that all behind and focus on spiritual hypnosis. And I knew that I had some help, some assistance, if I could say so, to help me and send me clients and send me the people I could help. And that's how it all started. And I've been here for soon 4 years, and it's great. So I've been doing spiritual hypnosis since then, full time, and I love it.
So I love how it starts, like you're in Montreal, you've got a great life, and then you get this big interruption of a spirit that it's a bit scary, it's a bit challenging to belief systems, and it upends your life. And there's that like health issue where for 6 days, you're terrified, scared physically for your life, and it's a traumatic event. But again, ends up being something which helps you rethink about, what's important in my life, what do I need to be done, and oh, it's inconvenient to pack up and move and change, but I realized I got what I needed, but I was still there. And so then it's that little kick to push and get you moving. Then eventually you do find your right place, and then everything works out. And I think that's really helpful for people to observe, which is this is a bit what I mean about the duality, which is we can think, it's bad to have an earthbound spirit that should have gone to the light, but it didn't. And then it comes and hassles us in the night, and we can't sleep, and we've got insomnia, and we're scared and confused, and it's interrupting us. And we think that's bad. And maybe it is, but it's also ends up being helpful for us in the long run. So is it good that there's an earthbound spirit? Well, not necessarily, but it's playing a role that's helpful for us. So whether it's good or bad, who knows? It starts off seeming bad, then it may turn out to be good. But either way, we can go beyond good or bad and just say it was helpful to get me on this path. And even this thing, it's hard to say it was good that I had this trauma in the hospital, and it definitely felt bad. But either way, good or bad, don't worry about it. The main thing is it was helpful because it got me to where I am now. And I think that's one way we can go beyond seeing things as good or bad. And that's something with our clients as well. So our clients are the kind of people who, like you, 9 years ago are going, I think there's a spirit in my room. And then they'll call us and say, I want a session. It's like, yeah, I was you 10 years ago. Or they'll be like, I had spirits have been weird for the last few years, and now I'm in the hospital, and now I'm stressed about recovering from it. And it's like, I want a session. And so we're like, okay, I was you 5 years ago or 15 years ago. It's like we know what it's about. And so I think the fact that you've had all those deep felt experiences really help you to help people. And so that's a lot about your story. What are the kind of stories that you see from clients? Do they have similar backstories to you? Or do they bring in things you can relate to, or things that are quite different? So do you have a couple of examples of a case study and a story from a client?
Well, I couldn't give you one specific example actually, or I could talk about many different examples for a very long time. The clients I meet, I receive, they don't, especially they don't have the same story I had, but everything that I experienced helped me a lot understand the client I see today, and in order to be able to help them. But I'm the clients I receive, there's kind of different themes. For maybe a couple of months, I will meet clients with the same problem or with the same need. And at the moment, most of the people I meet they come and they say, okay, there's this blockage in my life, and I know there's I want to know my path. I want to know why I'm here, what I'm supposed to do, and that's kind of similar to what I experience. So I know what they are going through, and that's very useful for me in order to be able to help them. So that's the main theme at the moment.
Okay, that's good. Sometimes people will come to you and they'll even present like there's a physical part, an emotional part, a mental part, a limiting belief, or some preconceived ideas, and then a spiritual part. Do you find that there's a mixture of that in your clients, or are they really coming with quite spiritual orientated things?
Usually, clients, they come for one main problem, but through the session, they realize that what they thought was their problem is actually not, and they find solution or they find explanation about the blockage or the limitation they experiment in a way they weren't expecting at all.
So you mentioned there about some of the key principles or the key themes that are quite similar. So what are those kind of themes that you see reoccurring?
So those themes reoccurring are, well, the main one is, what's my purpose? Why am I here? Should I continue in the work I'm doing at the moment and keep going every day, or is there something else I'm supposed to do or to realize? So that's the main one, I would say. And there's an interesting story actually about that with a client of I had a couple of years ago. He was living in Lausanne across the lake, and where I live, I'm living in a ski resort actually. So across the lake from Switzerland, you can see this weird road going up in the mountain, and that's really something you can see from the other side of the lake. And he saw this his whole life, but one day he decided, okay, I need to know what this is. I need to go there and have a look. So he took the boat with his backpack and arrived in Evian-les-Bains, and then he woke up in Toulon-les-Mémises, where I live, in the village where I live, and to spend a few days there and to just do some hiking around and to discover the place. And he arrived at the tourism office where he found my brochure, and he thought, oh, that's interesting. So he gave me a call and said, oh, could I have a session? I'm here for 3 days. Could I have a session? I said, well, I'm sorry, no, I can't give you a session before a month, maybe. So he said, okay, well, that's fine. If there's a cancellation, you know, I'm here. That's my details. You can just call me back. I'm here for 3 days. And I forgot about it because I knew there was no way that I could see him in this window, in this time frame. And a couple of days later, I received a call from my client, and he said, I'm really sorry, I have to cancel the session tomorrow. I can't come. There's this big problem. I have to cancel. And so, well, okay, it happens sometimes, so it's fine. I hung up the phone, and at the same time, the phone was ringing. So I took the phone again. So did you have any cancellation? And it was this person. So I thought, okay, well, as a matter of fact, yes, I can see you tomorrow. So he came for the session, and this was too weird. This was too many coincidences. And so he had the session, and I asked his guide during the session, what happened? And they said, well, we really needed to talk to him. He needs to know his path in life, his purpose. So it was time for him to basically sit down and listen. So we had to bring him to you. And that's how things happen sometimes, and I found it really interesting. So that's about the purposes in life. Another very interesting theme that can happen in the sessions, and which is actually very powerful, is when people will meet their relatives that pass away. With the years, I've developed mediumship, and so when we are in my office and when I'm talking with the client, I can see if someone is standing behind and listening to what we're saying. So I will just give them a few details, and they can say, "Oh yes, I recognize my father, my brother," or anyway. And during the session, I will ask their guides or their higher self and say, okay, there was someone present here in the room with us when we started. Is this being still present? And they say yes. So we asked this being to come closer, and so the client can describe this person, and they can have a conversation with them. They can really let go of everything they had on their chest for many years, like forgiveness, like they weren't here when they left. The last thing they couldn't tell them, so they can tell them, and the spirit can reply. So it's very powerful, and it's healing, and they can hug each other, and they really feel it, and it's usually amazing to witness when it's happening.
That's great. And so we started off talking actually at the beginning about how if you do a lot of past life regression sessions, entities, energies can come up, and we can use spirit releasement therapy for that. But now what you're talking with, as you do a lot of past life regression, you can get into between lives regression. And so that's a lot of the things that you're talking about here, where we've got life purpose as a presenting issue, but then you get the spirit guides come in and help people remind them of what that life purpose is. And that life purpose is often set between lives before they incarnate. They incarnate, get distracted by life, forget what they're doing, need a reminder or need a kick or whatever it is. And then when you've got and sometimes we can think of, earthbound spirits as being energies that stick around and need to go into the light. But I think there's a distinction between a soul group. And so in between lives, we can meet the soul group. And it sounds like in the sessions you're communicating with family members or loved ones who, rather than being an earthbound spirit or a spiritual entity like that, it's more like the presence of the soul group comes in and helps remind them of some things and give spiritual lessons. So is that how you see it?
It's actually very similar to what's happening in life between life sessions.
Right.
When this happens, when someone is present in the room, I'm not especially doing live between live session. It just happened, and it's just something we had in a past live session, maybe, or something like that. And for me, a close relative, a parent, a brother, a sister, or maybe sometimes even a very close friend, is not automatically someone from the soul group. I'm not going into details. When this is happening, I don't go into details about the soul group or soul family. That's something that I do in life between life sessions. And when this is happening, when the client, the person in trance is having a life between life session, and when they meet their soul family, it's also something amazing. And usually there's lots of emotions because it's like finding a friend or someone we really care about that we've lost for a very long time. And it's also very emotional and amazing moment in the session. Yeah, so that's similar.
So part of the offering on your website is specifically to do between life regression sessions. So there are people that come with you just to do that modality. So tell us a little bit about the kind of reason why people would do between lives rather than past lives or some other sessions.
Yes, well, usually when you come, the people I meet who come for finding a solution, or they have a problem in their life, so maybe we can find this solution in past life therapy, or maybe age regression. So this is more to solve problems. But some people, they don't really have problems in their life. Everything is going fine, but they want to have this spiritual experience. They want to go even further than what they've been experiencing or what they've been doing. And so usually that's the kind of client who will ask for a between life session. I don't offer, if someone calls me for a between life session, I usually I won't start with it. I would like to have first a past life regression first, because we can find that there was something that needed to be sorted out first, and also this can help the client to get used to the hypnotic state, to be able to connect better in between life session, because between life is something very different than past life. Past life, we're still in the in something we know. You can see a table. It's something very dense, and it's very easy to visualize or to describe in a past life or in a memory. But when you get into between life, it's more etheric. You don't really see people. They're actually energy beings, so they don't really have a body, or and so it's a little bit more difficult for the client to describe or to experiment. It's a deeper level of trance. That's why I like to start with the past life regression session first.
Yeah, that sounds great. That makes a lot of sense. So it's a useful prerequisite. So you mentioned before that, overall doing this work, you found it to be nourishing. And so can you tell us a little bit more about that, like the kind of things that you get from doing the work and the experiences that it gives you as a healer?
Well, it's first during the sessions when you can feel the energy of the guides present in the room. That's something amazing. Um, I remember one day starting a session, and I could feel right away some huge wings in the room. Maybe, I don't know, it was really big. And I thought, oh, who is that? I thought it was the guide or the person, but then we started the session, and it was a somnambulistic client, meaning that this person, after the 2 hours of the session, she didn't even remember she was on hypnosis. She didn't remember the session, what we talked about. The conscious mind wasn't here anymore. And during the session, I start talking with this being, with this guide, and after a little while, I ask, okay, who are you? I say, Michael. I thought, oh, Archangel Michael? And say, yes. So you in that case, you stand up, you sit up more appropriately, and this was an amazing experience. So that's one thing, first during the session when it's happening, but it's also after the session when the clients will call me back to tell me about the changes that happen in their life, or to tell me, yes, I realize now, I understand the message I've been given, I know what I have to do. And this is really nourishing me. This is why I want to do this job. This is why I have such a pleasure helping all those people. I remember, well, actually, it was maybe 3 weeks ago. I I had this client. She was a bit lost in her life. She didn't really know uh, what she was supposed to do anymore. She had this job. She liked her job, but she wasn't happy in life. And she had this amazing session. She had all the answers she needed from her higher self, her guides. She had a past life experience that gave her great lesson to understand what was happening in her life at this time. And after the session, she said, well, yeah, okay, yeah, it was interesting. And I wanted to tell her, but don't you realize that it's more than that? And she went home and she sent me a message a couple of days after, and she said, well, I'm very depressed, I'm very sad, I feel like I can't succeed in life. She was really down, and I couldn't believe it after the session she had. And I say, okay, you had the recording of the session. Did you listen to it? No, there's no point in listening. I didn't do well. It wasn't good. I said, well, listen to the session, and then we'll talk afterwards. And the day after, she sent me a message. It was the completely opposite of the message she sent me the day before. And she said, you were right. I had to listen to it, and it was amazing. And she sent me other message since then, but her life really changed completely for the best. And that's something happening. Usually, some people, they will have amazing experience, amazing sessions with the best messages they can have that can really change their life for the best. But they leave my office, and the part of the brain, the mental part, is back and driving on the and well, it wasn't that great. Well, I knew already everything. Well, I wasn't under hypnosis, and that's me who answered, and all this, and they just go back in their pattern, in their old way of thinking. So that's why I like when the client listen to the recording of the session again, to remember, to remind them the amazing messages they got during the session. And that's also, yes, to answer your question earlier, something I love in what I'm doing. When a client will call me back and give me all this feedback and telling me this change in my life, that change, and now I have this different relationship with my mother who was so hard with me, or I've changed my job, or I've lost 10 kilos, I didn't even do any diet, all those things. So it's really encouraging for me to continue and do more.
That makes a lot of sense. I see a lot of people who are beginning students of these therapies. And I think having that strong frame and knowing that your clients don't know necessarily how much benefit they've had, but you get to see, as you stick at it, you get to see days later, weeks later, years later, how those sessions you had with them have a really powerful impact. And so you get to do that because you've walked the healing path for a number of years, and that builds your confidence and your competence. So you've continued to do trainings, you've continued to do a lot of sessions and gather a lot of experience. So a lot of people will look at you and say, I identify with the experiences he had that got him on this path, but now he's done all these things and he's got to that place, and I'd like to be in his position. So what would you, or have his skills and have his experiences, so what would you say to people who are maybe healing themselves or beginning the healer's path or thinking about being professional healers? What might you tell those kind of people about what it's like doing healing work, and how to succeed in it and get these good results?
Well, first thing I would tell is have faith in yourself and the help you can get from your assistants, your public relationship team. I don't know how we can call them, but the hardest is to start to do the first session, because the more you wait, the more difficult it will get, and it's like jumping into the water. Of course, when you start with your closest friends or family or relative, and it's usually the most challenging sessions. But it's how you learn it. It's good to have difficult session, and maybe not being able to help the best way possible those people, but you are in learning. That's how you have to start. And the people you're doing with the session with, in a way, they've been sent to you, and everything that is happening is good for this person and is good for you as well to learn and grow. And maybe what you think, and this happened a few times for me, you think, oh, this was a terrible session, I couldn't help this person, it didn't work, I should have done it differently. And then this person will call you back and say, oh, thank you very much, this was amazing. And they got everything they needed. So it's first thing is to start. And second is to get really an interest on the subject, and there's so many books. I mentioned earlier Brian Weiss, Michael Newton, Dolores Cannon. They wrote a lot about spiritual hypnosis, and that's very helpful to open your mind even more on the subject, but also to learn some little tricks to be able to use in the sessions. And I remember, so 4 years ago when I moved in here and when I started my practice full time, after a few months, I was thinking, wow, I've done such huge progress. Maybe that's, I don't know how I should say that correctly in English. Um, I'm so much better. I'm so much better than when I started 6 months ago. It was amazing. I thought, okay, now I'm ready. Now I can go out and say, okay, I'm a spiritual hypnosis or a practitioner or therapist, or I was confident enough. But then 6 months later, I was thinking the same thing. Wow, I'm so much better than I was 6 months ago. And this has been like that for 4 years now, and it's just keep getting better and better and better. So go out, start, do this first session, learn from it, and that's the most important. Be open-minded. That's also another very important thing, to be really open-minded about everything you can hear from your clients or everything that can happen during the session. Being open-minded, and in the same time having your feet on the ground. And I think that's my previous life before doing spiritual hypnosis, working on computers and algorithm and logical things and doing biotechnology really helped me a lot to be grounded and to have this critical mind, and not to agree or accept everything that I get during the session, because sometimes can be the person, the mental, the part of the mental brain answering, and with practice, when this is happening. Or it could be also another spirit, and you think you're talking to a guide, but then there's this little thing that is off, and if you just ask few more questions, you realize, oh no, that's not a guide. Oh no, there's something to work on, to do here.
Yeah, that's a lot of great points. And so I find the same thing where I work with, take people through hypnotherapy, past life regression training, and sometimes they'll submit their assignments for the week and say, oh, this, my sessions went very good this week. And I'll look at it and go, and it's the same thing and then they'll come back the week later and say, oh, I interviewed them before the next session. They said that last session that I did was really amazing. I can't believe it. And so they'll give themselves a C plus or a C minus for the assignment. I'm reading it thinking, you did great, you got an A. A week later, their client tells them they got an A, and they're going, oh, I felt bad. And then they'll also tell me afterwards, I almost quit because I thought I did a bad job. So firstly, not all sessions have to be perfect. Secondly, even if you think they're bad, most people think they're much worse than they are. And thirdly, you'd be amazed at what it takes for, or the experience of the client is quite different to the experience of the person giving it. And then you made a great point. Ultimately, these are all things that we need to learn. And sometimes the sessions that seem to be, really great and easy, that they're nice, but you may not learn as much. From some of the trickier ones, you learn a lot, but then people get a bad feeling from it, or give up, or think it's difficult. And this can even be after really only having done a half a dozen sessions, and they do 5 good ones, 1 bad one, and think, oh, it's too difficult, and stop. It's like, keep going, keep practicing, keep doing it. And I find mentoring people, it's giving people the clarity to know that they've done a good job, even though they may not have thought they have. I know that they have, and their client knows they have. So that's a great point. I think it's a really nice thing for people that are watching this to hear and to know that as they go along this path, it doesn't have to be smooth. There can be ups and downs along the way, but also just keep at it and keep doing the practice. And that's what you've done. And you've also kept on continuing to learn, grow, read, train. That's because you're passionate about it and drawn to it. So even to people who aren't really that passionate about it or sort of curious about it, but it's one of those things where it's a vocation and a calling. So if you've got that calling and that's part of your life purpose, go for it, and commit to it, and work hard on it, and be well trained, and your confidence will grow along with your competence. So yeah, that's a great, a bunch of great stories there. So thanks for those. Well, Benoît, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. So how can people contact you if they're interested to find out more about you or to work with you online, or if they're lucky enough to get to France?
Well, there's my website, luminescent, lumi-naissant.com, whereas unfortunately my website is only in French at the moment, but I have some people contacting me through the website in English. I will answer in English. That's the best way to contact me. There's a form on the website, and you can find all the information you need.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'll put those links in the description, so check that out. So Benoît, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Great to see you again. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It was great. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening or watching. To find out more about my guest, see the links in the description for details. If you're interested in having personal sessions or certification training in hypnosis or hypnotherapy, or regression to this life, past lives, between lives, or spirit releasement therapy, then visit my website, the pastlifeawakeninginstitute.com, for details. Thanks so much for watching or listening, and see you next time.